get started. Welcome everybody. Good afternoon. My name is James Baker, and welcome to the 2025 fiscal year wastewater stakeholder presentation. This presentation is really designed to address wholesale municipalities, retail service providers, and industrial users, those large industrial users that are part of our system. Just going over our agenda today, we're going to provide a brief system overview. Many of you already know what the system is and how it's made up. We're going to talk about implementation of new EPA and EGLE regulations that we've been working on for a number of years that have now been implemented in 2024. We've got a separate presentation from me, so when I'm done, Susie Drust, our superintendent, will step in, provide some updates on plant performance and operation. We're going to talk about our O&M and capital budget outlooks for fiscal year 2025, and then we're going to get into fiscal year 2025 rates, the proposed rates that we'll be proposing to the City Commission for January. And then we also have a new category. We're going to give out some IPP awards to some industries that have really gone above and beyond. This year we want to recognize those industries in front of their peers here today. So just going into the utility overview, this green polygon on the screen represents the areas that we serve. Many of you here today are your own wholesale entities. You provide service to your own customer base through retail agreements or retail agreements that you have with others. So your area may be a green blob on this map. So all the green blobs on this map all come to this site where we're all sitting here today for treatment. This plant is unique. It is the only plant in the state of Michigan that has powdered activated carbon treatment. This plant was specifically designed and built to handle the type of waste streams that it receives. So there's a lot of unique characteristics there. This plant also has an EPA exemption for pharmaceutical waste that provides us the ability to treat that. And overall, one of the things that we wanted, to really highlight is that no matter what is going on, this plant has to receive and treat over 1.3 million gallons of wastewater per hour. So every hour, 24/7, 7 days a week, 365, including Christmas Day, there's 1 million gallons of wastewater coming through the door of this facility here. And so that's really going to speak to a lot of the reliability and operational performance criteria that we've got to make sure that we're meeting so that we can treat those waste streams and so that we can treat it to the highest regulation requirements and treat it and provide it to the Kalamazoo River. In terms of system capacity, we're going to talk quite a lot about this. This has been something that's a bit of a changing landscape for us. We're actually going through an evolution now through changes with our permit and changes with EGLE that we're moving away from our historic kind of hydraulic nameplate capacity, and we're getting into capacity of individual pollutant parameters. We're getting into treatment capacities of pollutants and specific capacities for things in our sewer use ordinance. So we're going to kind of go through that and kind of walk through that so there's some broad understanding by everybody. Going back in time, back to 2017, we were issued a new permit, and that new permit required several things. It required, first and foremost, that the City of Kalamazoo conduct a mall study and that we incorporate a male. So that was a maximum allowable headworks and loading study that had to be incorporated out here, and then that mall then informs the male. And the male is the maximum allowable industrial loading. So if you think of like a pie, essentially what EGLE is saying is that the whole pie is going to come into your facility. That's going to get regulated and controlled. And then of that pie, you've got pieces for what we call background, which is our residential customer base, quite often referred to as our retail customer base. And then we have industrial loadings, which are our big industries and then our Q2 customers. So those slices of those pies are limited, and they're limited based on our performance and study. Getting into some background background of that, the way the plant's configured today has had some few modifications to it, but broadly speaking, we're the same plant that went through a basis of design back in 1977, went through actual engineering design in 1978, and during those original designs, we had loading parameters that we established and based our treatment capabilities on. With the mall study, a lot of these things changed, and so we ended up getting down to a male, enforceable male, of only 168,000 pounds for BOD. Now, all compatible pollutants were updated. Those industries that are here today, you see those in your new permits, and we're going to be talking about some of that. But there's, broadly, there's been a major change from where we are from nameplate capacity to where we operate today on, looking at capacities in each pollutant parameter. So, one of the things to highlight in terms of where we were, 53.5 million gallons per day, that's our nameplate capacity. We're currently sitting at about 27 million gallons per day of actual flow that comes in our door. We just completed, and you can see the building behind us, new tertiary treatment system. That's it. That's a picture of it there behind us. That system was built to withstand a hydraulic flow rate of 96 million gallons per day. So you can see that we're maintaining and enhancing our hydraulic capacities, and we're having to do that because our organic loadings are much higher. We've got some additional projects we'll talk about in the capital plan that will help to bring up those loadings so that we can restore and reestablish some higher males into the future. We also want to touch on wholesale industries and also our township. So we have IJAs, which are interjurisdictional agreements. Those agreements are essentially in the process of getting rewritten. We've got requirement from EPA to rewrite those. We also have been working with a group of our township folks represented by the Regional Commission that are helping us to negotiate new long-term agreements. Those agreements are well through the process, and we wanted to highlight that flow and loading is not a limit of those agreements. So those agreements do not limit loading, they do not limit flow. Flow and loading are limited by the physical capacity of pipe in the system and where your discharge point is to that. However, industries are regulated by that. So, for example, we serve City of Portage. Kendrick Gwynn is here in the audience with us. There's no capacity limitation that we're putting on City of Portage. Whatever can fit in a pipe, Portage is allowed to push into the pipe. However, we do have Pfizer sitting behind Kendra, and we do limit Pfizer at the point of discharge. So it's kind of the name of the game. That's what EPA recommends. We're not controlling the individual jurisdiction. We have 22 jurisdictions that come to this place for treatment. We'll regulate that industry within that jurisdiction. Kind of talking through that, we have a vast interceptor network that was built through a lot of great partnerships by many of the communities sitting here today, many of the townships, also supported by Kalamazoo Board of Public Works. That interceptor network was built from the 1940s and completed in 1981. That interceptor network remains extremely strong and viable for future flows. In fact, that interceptor network flow capacity is greater than our pump capacity. So we've got an ability to pump 77 million gallons per day here at this facility, and one of those interceptors can flow more than that. I know, like the river interceptor, at a half full or 1/3 full can flow something like 54 mgd. So we saved you the having a look at it, but we've got a spreadsheet that shows all the interceptor capacities and what they all are throughout the entire system. But we're nowhere close to exceeding that. So that's good news in terms of capacity and future capacity of both our industrial users and our wholesale providers. Some of the tools that we've got in place to help us, monitor that interceptor network is a real-time smart sewer system. So we've got, and we'll be sharing logins and how do you access the system. You know, your engineers are really going to be excited by this program. We spent a lot of time, we spent about 3 years developing this, and we've got sensors and manholes all throughout the system. Those sensors monitor flow, so you've got a pipe, and you know the diameter of the pipe, and you know the grade of the pipe, which means that the angle that the pipe is sitting. And we measure the flow. We can tell you how much flow is in that pipe, the height of flow, by using Manning's equation. So not 100% accurate, but it's as accurate as most engineers get in terms of monitoring flow in gravity sewers. So it's a great way to check on the system and monitor the system in real time. And so that system is now running in the background, and it will alert our engineers and staff if we have an area where we see a blockage is occurring. We responded to a blockage of the southwest interceptor along a railroad and low-lying environmental concern area, which was a swamp, something that we don't want to have sewer overflows go into. We were able to go out there and remove a blockage before it became an overflow. We also have a 24-inch interceptor that goes into a siphon on Kalamazoo Avenue downtown. We've had some history with this line. We had a local bar that received a backup. That 24-inch interceptor decided instead of flowing through the siphon, it wanted to flow into the basement of that building. It caused several $100,000 worth of damage. So that's been certainly a concern for us, that we want to make sure we're maintaining that level of service on that pipeline. And so we now have alerts that tell us that that pipe is starting to back up. And we've sent our vector crews out there to respond to that in real time and prevent situations from occurring. We've got rain gauges all throughout the system. One of the things that's neat about that, when that Portage tornado came through, we could kind of see the path of rain differential. We saw some areas that got more than 4 inches of rain during the Portage tornado when it came through, and we saw that in our rain gauges. That can really help in real time when we're looking at flows that are coming in, high flows at lift stations. It can also help us in future planning as our engineers are looking at spatial distributions of rainfall within our area. If you're into rainfall, if you're into weather, you'll know that Kalamazoo as a county doesn't always receive the same amount of rain over the same area. That rain can be, really variable throughout the storm events. So overall, this system has been extremely beneficial for us. We continue to learn new features of it and employ new features of it, and it's something we're going to be sharing with our engineering partners in the townships as well as we continue to roll that out. Another program that we have, just to kind of touch on it, just your regular 8-inch sewer that's down some road somewhere. That sewer's got a finite capacity just based on its size, and we've got a program over on the water side of upsizing. We also have this program in sewer. This is a program that we're also going to be pushing with our partners in the townships, that if you're planning an area that is going to experience changes in zoning in the future, maybe that area is going to become a commercial area, we should talk about considering going deeper with your sewer and maybe going larger diameter with your sewer so that you can serve more customers in the future. So kind of bringing it back to that term regulated capacity, we had a whole host of regulatory enforcement actions that we took place with in cooperation with EPA and EGLE. That all went into effect on January 1st of 2024. So we've got a new sewer use ordinance, and if you look at our new ordinance compared to our previous one, our previous ordinance was about 30 pages. Our new ordinance is about 180 pages, I think. So it's quite a difference. That then opened the door to establish new local limits. We've got new dewatering discharge sampling requirements as well. PFAS has been a big issue for everybody. We now regulate and control how much PFAS you can put into the sewer system. We have a PFAS limit here for our headworks loading. We're only allowed to load the headworks with so much PFAS, which means that we can only put so much PFAS in the pipeline. We just built a new GPI pipeline between us and GPI. That was a $3 million pipeline. We got the results back for dewatering the analytical and discovered that there's PFAS above our headworks loading limit. We had to bring in temporary filtration system with GAC treatment to dewater to support that project. That added another $1.4 million to the project. So $3 million pipeline became a $4.4 million pipeline just because of PFAS regulations. And I know that's happening, that those kind of things are going to happen to industries as you guys look to expand, and that thing's going to happen continually in construction in areas that are building in brownfield areas or building in contaminated areas. New wastewater discharge permits, so everybody here on the industry side of the house is operating under either a brand new permit or a permit that's going to get superseded by a brand new permit, which will have new requirements. There's a whole new requirements for slug discharge control plans, for spill response plans. Some of these things are very different. Some of you industries have been with us as long as you've been in industries and have been doing it the way that we've used to do it for 40 or more years, and that's all changing now. So this has been a very steep learning curve for many of us, and we're continuing to get through it together. We also have our new enforcement response plan, which kind of provides guidance on kind of equalized enforcement across all the different industries based on what type of situation it is. So one of the things we wanted to highlight in terms of compatible pollutants is that most every industry was designed based on our limitation of male. If you remember, our male limitation, maximum allowable industrial loading for headworks for BOD was 168,000 pounds. So that's not a lot. So that's getting spread pretty thin across all the industries. And that same story goes for solids, ammonia, and what's going to happen in 2025 is phosphorus. And that's already in your permits, and so that's getting regulated right now. So those limits are spread thin, we know that, and we anticipate that most industries will have somewhere between a 5 and a 15% excursion rate on many of those things. So most excursions, if it's compatible pollutant and it's non-severe, so it's no impact, no harm, those are usually handled with what we call compliance communication. If there is an exceedance that's severe or that exceedance causes damage or harm, then that compliance communication would be a NOV, a notice of violation. We've got all those new pollutant parameters that we talked about. Some of those are requiring sales. You might have an industry like a metal finisher that now has a limitation for phosphorus. They didn't before. They're now having to have an SAL, which is a special allocation for loading. That now requires us to know your process flow, so we can put concentration and flow together in real time, create a loading number for that. And so that has to be flow proportional sampling. So we have many industries, including some mom and pop shops, that are going to have to get some major increases in flow monitoring. So those industries are going to receive NOVs and NTCs. NTC is a notice to correct, and that provides you a timeline and an established procedure for correcting some of these deficiencies. We also have fines are now part of our ERP. So our minimum fine is $10,000. We usually always try to fine in abeyance. So you see that if you get a fine in abeyance, that means that we're going to hold that fine and suspend it while you conduct action in your NTC. So you've got a notice to correct that said we need you to install a meter, or we need you to submit some reports, or we need you to do some sort of action. And then if you complete that action, then that fine is not administered. We also have industries that were unable to meet that requirement, and so that fine did get administered. Jumping over to some O&M and capital budget outlooks, we want to talk about what are some things that we've been working on at a higher level with some of our other partners. And I'm talking a little bit here about our rate negotiations that we've been working on with our regional commission. So there's some fundamentals that we're working towards, and some of those are an equalized rate concept. And equalized rate concept embracing regional cooperation, kind of looking at this instead of 22 independent systems. We really try to look at it as one broad system with one, common goal. Our common goals are to provide, clean, safe, treatment, and so that we're protecting the environment. Ultimately, that treatment is what we're after. We're also after following EPA regulations on the industries and everything else, and then just kind of that simplified process for, providing that service to the public. And if we look at this as a system and we embrace the concept of broad economic growth as a region, we can really look at having a goal of long-term economic stability in growth across entire Kalamazoo County. So there's a lot of words on the screen here. I'm not going to read them to you. This information is taken right from the rate report. It really kind of talks about there's these kind of three main concepts in rates that have been kind of controlling things. One is where we allocate costs for collection systems. We're providing some updates on that. The other key concept is just what we talked about, an equal rate concept of providing the same level of treatment for everybody, and then embracing that concept across all the user classifications. So we talked about we have retail users, we've got in-city, out-city folks that participate in retail. We have this group, which is largely represented by wholesale service providers and retail service providers to others, wholesale to us, retail to others, and industrial users. So these same concepts are being applied across everybody. And then the other concept within that is the concept of rate of return. And so if you take the rate of return requirement and spread that out across the entire system, provides broad system benefits as opposed to a rate of return requirement only on a certain customer class, so that it provides better equity across that system. So those are those rate fundamental changes that we're working on that will help the overall system create this concept of equalized rates and a regional approach to the service we provide. Drilling into some specific areas of level of service, we see chemicals, including odor control, those are really starting to increase. We're spending upwards of between $5 and $6 million a year on chemicals now. If we go back to 2018, that number was closer to about $1.5 million a year. Odor control is a big portion of that. We've got new carbon scrubber units that are part of all the processes here in wastewater. That was an upgrade that we made a few years ago, and we continue to support that with annual investments and carbon changeouts. Changing that carbon out to $600,000 annually to refresh that carbon. So that's one component of that. Sludge disposal. We're going to talk some more about that as we go through the slides. That has been something that continues to increase year over year over year. Again, if we go back to 2018, we were looking at $4.5 million a year on that. That contract stayed with us through 2020, and then we've been jumping ever since. Some other work, really kind of focusing on those sewer collection systems. We take all of our systems and add them all together. We've got about 900 miles of sewer pipe in the ground out there. So that smart sewer system helps us to keep an eye on that. We know that folks in your own retail areas are providing an eye on your stuff. And then, with our agreements with the townships, we're going to be doing some sanitary sewer lining and a lot of rehab work on that in years to come. One of the things that we wanted to show you is kind of where is the work occurring right now, and we ask ourselves this question all the time. We've got over 15,000 assets in the asset management system in Blue City. We've got work orders every day. The TOSs in the room can talk about how many work orders we do and how many work orders are assigned to the different units. And there's a lot of data and there's a lot of information out there that can be overwhelming at times. One of the other things that we realize is that we all drive vehicles to go to work assignments. So Nobody walks out, to Augusta to, check on the lift station. We take a vehicle, and every one of our vehicles are coded by the department and GPS to the driver. So we can go to our GPS system and look at where are our vehicles going on a yearly basis. So this image is a heat map. This shows you all of our 4-dash vehicles, which are owned by and assigned to the sewer department. This is everything from Badgers to pickup trucks. It's got a 4-dash number on it. And so you can see, it's got some heat signatures of where that work's happening. You see that, we've got strong representation in kind of the core city, downtown. We're up in the north side. This is section 10, this is section 15. Down here, section 26. These are kind of known areas for older sewers, clay sewers, and roots. These are heavy tree producing areas. We're up here in Parchment quite a bit, and then you kind of see dots where we're out kind of touching everybody. You can see we're lighting up areas. Most of those areas where we're lighting up are lift stations or areas like where interceptors are, areas that we're out doing some direct work. So we actually got one of these infographics for our streets department, we've got it for our sewer department, we've got it for our water department, so we're able to look at from an annualized basis where that work is occurring, just from a high-level snapshot of what's going on. And we do have home base here at the Harrison facility, and there's a home base at Stockbridge facility. We deleted all those endpoint trips from this overlay, so that won't skew the data. These are actual trips, except for Harrison and except for Stockbridge. Getting back to sludge, we're up to $13.2 million a year last year. That number is even going up. That's an operational number. That means that we've got, every year, we're going to have $13 million comes in just to deal with that number for sludge disposal. We've been working on a process to, really get after a new plan for sludge disposal. We've got our Sustainable Biosolids Committee, and we've got a good governance group that's working on that. That group is going to meet again on November 13th. Essentially we had 30 technologies that submitted to our RFP, so we worked first last year to narrow that down. We got that down to 3 different technologies. We've been doing some homework on those technologies to provide better understanding of cost, better understanding of capability, and better understanding of emissions requirements in terms of, what are we going to have to add to that equipment to ensure that we're at a zero discharge for any kind of polluting parameters into the atmosphere. And, we're going to meet again and come out of this meeting and provide some updates. But, where we're really going towards this, right now, we manage a wet product. So we have liquid sludge. That liquid sludge goes through a centrifuge process. Susie's going to talk a little bit more about that. And then we dry that out. We're, on our best day, still only drying to 23, 24% solids, which means there's, 77 to 76% water that we're hauling. We're storing all that wet material on our site. We're consolidating all that wet material on our site, and we're transporting all that wet material through our neighborhood. So we know that we've got to transition to, managing, transporting, and consolidating a dry material. A dry material that's free from odor, a dry material that's free from, any sort of vaporization or anything that it can give off, odors and things like that. And then ultimately, when we talk about landfill and transportation of material that's dry as compared to wet, it's a huge reduction. We're talking over 95% reduction in weight. And so when you go to the landfill, what do? You go across a scale and you pay by the ton. So it would be better for the community, it'd be better for our plant, it would be better for our pocketbooks if we transition from handling and managing a wet material to handling and managing a dry material. So that's really kind of the focus of where we're going with that. Some other capital improvement focus that we have. We're really going to be looking at lift stations. We've got a whole new panel design. We're taking the panels and putting them out at many different lift stations. I know Charleston's got some new panels. We've got 65 lift stations in the system, so they're all getting new panels. We're working towards getting generators at every single lift station. We went through the ice storm. When we went through the ice storm in 2024, 23, sorry, we had a real strong realization that, we only have 3 licensed electricians in staff. And so for us to send a licensed electrician, back to the staff, if I've got a lift station that's down in Texas and I've got a lift station down in Augusta, there's a lot of driving that has to occur to get that electrician between those stations. And so if we can get stations to operate reliably by themselves without a lot of input from our electricians, then that's going to provide overall reliability to our system, and then our electricians can stay here in the plant and focus on, the big picture aspect of keeping SCADA up and running and keeping the treatment plant up and running. So getting, into rates here, we wanted to share with you, this pie chart. It's broken up all the different pies, all the different pieces. Broadly speaking, everybody that's in the room today represents about 51% of our revenue requirement. We've got GPI and Pfizer together represent 25% of our revenue requirement. We add in the wholesale communities like Gold Lake Sewer and Water, Vicksburg, Portage, those folks. That brings in another 18% of that represented class. And then we've got the remaining industries that bring up about 8%. All sum total, it's about 51% of the revenue, leaving 49% of the revenue to all the retail organizations, which would be City Kalamazoo retail, and then all the townships that represent our retail communities. What does your rate pay for? So this just summarize our, what are our 3 buckets? We've got 3 main buckets of cost. Those are treatment, collections, which we call local collections or local collector sewers, and then we have the interceptors. So in terms of this group, which is largely those wholesale communities, everybody pays for treatment and everybody pays for interceptors. Now, if you're an industry and you're located just in town and you're in one of the retail areas, you would also pay for the local collector sewer. And if you're an industry and you live in the city, you'd also pay for that retail aspect of it as well. You see, in total, it's about $40 million of cost. So this is just another way to represent, further break that down. We show kind of, you can kind of pick who you are here on this chart, and then you can kind of go across and see, like, okay, what am I paying for? Municipalities, again, like Gold Lake Sewer and Water, City of Portage, you folks would be this line. You pay for treatment, and you pay for interceptors. You've been excluded from those cost centers of local collector sewers. If you're an industry and you're inside the city, then you pay for treatment. Everybody pays for treatment. You pay for the local collector sewers, and you also pay for interceptors. And if you're outside the city, but you're in one of those retail townships, and you pay for all that as well. This is a chart with a lot of numbers on it. This is a somewhat of a complicated chart to explain to everybody, but it's really kind of simple. Basically, what it represents is the proportional percent cost to provide those functions. And so we calculate this based on the removal performance of each one of those. So I'm talking about from the operations perspective. We've got within our budget, operations portion of that budget assigned to treatment. We know that these are kind of the main goals of treatment. We can go through each one of those unit processes and see how that process performs by actual empirical data of removals. Those removals then tie back to actual costs. So we've got that shown. We've had major changes in cost allocations over the last, I'm going to say, 5 years. Let me go 6 years. If we go back to when solids disposal was $4 million a year in total, some years $3 million a year, when we ran filter presses, we really didn't have a lot of costs with solids in the grand scheme of things. We go to today when we're on centrifuges and we have sludge disposal costs that are pushing $14 million a year. Our costs are much higher than that. So those costs are starting to shift from where they were kind of hydraulically centered now towards they're being more focused on individual parameters. You then look at how we're regulated. When we were regulated before just based on nameplate capacity, so the solids was kind of just part of it. But now we're regulated on those male performance criteria, and those male performance criteria are much smaller than what we were. So our costs have gone up, but our percent of the pie has gone down. So each piece of the pie that you apply to this chart here has got more value to it, so to speak. So there's the overall concept of how that's broken out. Similar concept for that capital component of it. The capital component of it is directly related to the performance of that capital item with respect to the 10 state standards and engineering parameters of the capital item. So, for example, if we were, managing BOD or we were experiencing BOD loading that was, towards the higher end of our plant capacity, you're going to see more representative results on that aspect of it. And then in line with what the ENR process does, primary treatment mainly removes solids, solids handling mainly deals with solids, aeration or secondary treatment mainly deals with BOD. So you can see those classifications kind of work within those unit process areas. This is something that will get updated probably every year. Will get checked, but probably won't get updated until mainly every 3 years. So what we're looking for when we update this is that the TOS is calculate the top half of the sheet based on actual plant performance. So they'll do that over the year, then we'll compare it to see are the numbers moving and shifting a lot, or are they staying relatively the same? And then the bottom portion of the sheet is updated by the engineers. There's probably not too much change, but they are related. So the numbers that make the top half of the sheet work go in as inputs, and they work in the bottom half of the sheet as well. So early on we talked about rate methodology changes and how those changes were really kind of goal-driven for equalized rate concept across all customer classifications. We talked about major changes in level of service and how that's driving costs in chemicals and sludge disposal. We talked about future reduction in operating revenue because we're going to build that sustainable biosolid solution so that we can transition from managing a wet product to managing a dry product. And when we do that, we're going to realize some dramatic reductions in operational costs. We're going to have capital costs, but those capital costs are spread out over a bonded period, whereas operational costs are unique today right now. So those are changes. We also have overall changes in operational and capital cost allocation factors. Just talked about that. That's this sheet right here. And then so changes in customer classification, proportional use and distribution. That's what we talked about 2 slides previous, where you can kind of find yourself, municipal provider, what products are, what products are offered. Everyone gets treatment. Everybody gets collections. Or sorry, everybody gets the intersectors. So we throw all that on the wall and go to calculate rates for next year. We get some numbers we might not like. And some of that just is due to some of those changes. When we first did this, we calculated a rate increase for City of Portage. I think it was like 46% increase. And we said, well, Hender's not going to like that. And not to pick on Portage, but that was pretty much across the board for everybody else. Pfizer, GPI, everybody had similar numbers. And so did City Kalamazoo. We had numbers that were very high double digit. So we worked with the rate consultant and said, okay, what's going on here? What can we do? And really it came back to, because of all those factors I just talked about, the instability and costs that are really driving operations, mainly due to sludge and all those other factors I listed, just looking 1 year out doesn't really solve anything. But in time, when that sludge solution is embraced and put in operation, that saves money. So let's go to that year. So we use what's called a future test case year. We're setting rates in 2030, but we're going to pretend that it's 2030 and we're going to set rates for that year. Then we're going to back ourselves out of it year by year by year to get to where we are today. And when we do that, we provide what's called a 6-year glide path. We see a major mellowing of those rates. I picked on Kendra earlier, so I'll give her the good news. It's down to, what did I say, 11.9? 10.9%. So, you know, great news with that. These, across the top here is that system rate increase. So most of the wholesale users that are in shares, you're impacted by system rate increase, and then whether your individual flows are going down or up based on your 2-year trend. So if you were looking at a system increase of 12%, and your flows were static, you would have a 12% rate increase. If you were looking at a system flows that were going up, then that would be proportional to that. There is some smoothing between in-city and out-city rate. You're seeing that. We talked about those retail groups. It's a little bit different cohorts than what's here today, but I appreciate that we may have audiences online that may be interested in that as well. Some smoothing of that occurs due to that overall matching of level of service between retail entities and balancing of those collection costs that we're going to be providing collection services in the township areas as well. And that there's capital investment occurring that's getting balanced across all user bases also. So that balances out. You see this is a projection. You know, everybody should be able to find themselves on this list. That proposed monthly rate is here in bold, and it shows you all the way out to 2030. So a different way to look at it, but this shows you what your actual percent is if you're interested. Pfizer, 12.7%. Good news, you know, you're right in there, maybe a little bit of a flow increase, but mainly, you know, that rate is carried on the system increase, and that's a whole heck of a lot better. We're talking about 30% increase. I would have had to give a better launch if we were talking about a 30% rate increase. Big winner, I think Augusta, 7.1%. I think we're still working with the flow meter there. Augusta's flow kind of dropped off when we installed a new flow meter. So if that holds true, Augusta's going to kind of go down and stay low. Gull Lake Sewer and Water has been slowly increasing, and every time we put a new flow meter in, it increases. So John probably doesn't want us to put any more flow meters out there. Manawhan's been increasing, Vicksburg's been increasing. You know, we're seeing that there are areas in the county that are, you know, getting housing increases that are, you know, flows are starting to go up. Nothing big, but proportional with growth, and, you know, overall, you know, probably good news. Again, this is good news. It's a good news conversation. I know that, you know, looking at 10% rate increases is probably never good news for anybody. But if, you know, we really look at the investment that we're planning, we've got a $300 million capital improvement program that we're focusing on over the next 5 years. You know, this really is, you know, a good news program. Just a quick update on shares. I know I'm kind of running out of time here. Municipalities will continue to stay in shares. There's not going to be any open enrollment for shares in 2025. So if you're in shares right now, you're going to stay in shares. If you're not in shares, we'll keep you out of shares. For city, actual dollars and cents, what does this all translate out? We showed the monthly numbers for the big wholesale users. It's always helpful to understand what this is a typical customer. A typical in-city customer, about $3.60 a month increase, and then for a typical township customer, it's about $3.04 a month. Where does this put us in respect to other Michigan peer communities? Again, below average. We go from the actual lowest in the state to the lowest in the state still. And then for our out-city groups, we shuffle a little bit between Wyoming. There's been probably a 5-year race between us and Wyoming over the last 5 years on who's got the lowest rate in the state for sewer. So, I know we're talking about a bill we have to pay. I know no one's happy that it's going up. Broadly speaking, 10 or 12% across the system. But in terms of the investment in the system and the benefit that this all provides, really is overall pretty positive news. So early on, I said we're going to recognize some industries for a lot of great work that everybody's been doing. We want to recognize you in front of your peers. So we wanted to recognize Bell's Brewing for outstanding compliance. So Bell's, if you want to come up here, get your award. Thank you very much, guys. So Bell's has done just an amazing job, and we just want to talk to you positively about rolling through all those new changes in permit. Bell's got quite an operation out there and quite a lot of stuff going on any given day, and all those blue parameters definitely apply to Bell's. So they've been able to, make it through it, make the limits, not get any NOVs, and really kind of keep your heads above water, so to speak, in terms of that compliance. And really done just an amazing job with all of the programs right now. So thank you very much. Yeah. For outstanding communication, and we've got 2 awards for Zoetis because they have 4 buildings. We strive ourselves in math out here and our ability to divide. Is everybody from Zoetis? Come up. We'll have to share. The goal was to get Zoetis awards for all their facilities, but we only could get 2 for right now, so we have to they're on that. But thank you very, very much. Again, Zoetis, wonderful job, multiple facilities, multiple different permit parameters, things like a farm. I mean, that's just a wild operation out there, and great communication with these folks. It was really appreciated by our team. We really like to thank you, and again, great job. Thank you very much for all your great work. Burroughs, is Burroughs here? All right, come on up. Great work.
Yay, Greg.
Hey, Greg. Burroughs is, I don't want to say you guys are a mom and pop because you're nationally recognized as one of the foremost manufacturers of toolboxes and heavy-duty pallet systems that exist, but you're not a huge corporation. And so, there are some, real costs that we talked about. There's some big numbers and some real costs on this stuff. And, there's folks, come to work every day that can feel this. And when we say, hey, you got to put in this meter, it's got to come from somewhere. And so we recognize that. We recognize all the hard work, professionalism. The Burroughs has been a wonderful partner. They really help us together to ensure compliance. So, we're going to thank you very much for all your great work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to provide an update on next steps. So we'll be moving this right along. We'll be presenting to the City Commission on the 12th, and then we'll be presenting ordinance recommendations on the 18th and the 2nd. These are all public meetings. Everybody's welcome to attend those. And then That rate, those rate recommendations, we are planning, in our recommendations to the commission for proposed effective dates of January 1st. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Susie. I guess I'll pause real quick while we're switching that around. Just if anybody's got any questions for me in terms of the rates or the work we're doing or solids, I can fill the room with that.
One question just around the industrial users on the rate percentage slide towards the end there.
Yep.
20, 28, 29 seems like it went up and then went back down. Is that just where like capital is being spent?
Yeah. Some of that too is on some of the flows. We've taken some projections on some of the industrial flows to say, hey, we think you're going to keep growing, but now we're going to kind of balance you out. So again, the industrial users and with municipalities, your flow is a function of whether you go up or down, and then it's your rate. In some industries, we try to understand the industry, but none of us can understand your industry like you guys can. We see some odd trends sometimes in industries, and so a lot of that is just us trying to recreate those trends over an extended period of time. Sometimes we get them right, sometimes we get them wrong. Any other questions? All right, right to you, so thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. This afternoon now. Again, welcome to the Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant. I'm Susie Drust. I'm the wastewater operations superintendent. James has asked me to give a wastewater operations overview on regulatory performance and recent process improvements. We'll get started. We're going to cover briefly 3 topics. I'll start by talking about our natural pollutant discharge elimination system permit, or NEP. James spoke a lot to you about landfill costs. Some of the driving factors for process improvements to the solids handling facility was the increased cost of biosolids hauling, as well as material requirements of the landfill. So landfills require certain quality of materials for slope stability, and like James mentioned, we handle a wet product, so our solids were too wet. We didn't meet that slope stability standard. So we knew we needed to increase the total solids percentage leaving our facility. We held trials and pilots of different dewatering technologies and compared the dewatering efficiencies. Another significant driving factor for the solids handling improvements was odor control. So we're in the process of implementing plant-wide odor control strategies, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But solids handling facility is one of the main contributors to odor at the wastewater plant. We recognize that. So prior to 2002, in our solids handling facility, we ran 4 belt filter presses. There's a picture of them here. 2 of these presses had been in operation since the 90s, and 2 were added later in 2001. So we're looking at 20 to 30 years of dewatering on these machines. They're reliable in 2019, we were getting about 18.56 parts per billion hydrogen sulfide in this sludge storage area. Now, as we're piloting and implementing new odor control practices throughout the years, we're seeing the averages of hydrogen sulfide in this storage location declining. In terms of plant-wide odor control, we have these units at 5 target locations throughout the wastewater plant. They're pure air scrubbers. They were installed in 2021. These pull air from within specific buildings through an engineered media, which is impregnated with carbon and permanganate to trap those odor-causing molecules. So you might be wondering, how do we monitor for and how are we collecting all of our odor data for hydrogen sulfide? So these readings come from 7 solar-powered sensors like this. And we have them situated strategically throughout the treatment plant. We monitor these sensors in real time on the EnviroSuite monitoring system. This system will alert our treatment operations supervisors on shift via email if an odor monitor exceeds a custom set threshold. And that allows us to investigate and the source of the odor and take action to resolve the problem. So here are the yearly summaries for all of the reduction in our CBOD concentration and our TSS concentration. That's all I have to share with you today. Thank you for listening. Here's my contact information in case you have any follow-up questions to what I presented today, and I'll turn it back over to James.
All right, well, thanks, Susie. So this really concludes our presentation today. We want to make sure everyone's got all the information, so you can share that with your stakeholders, your teams, your plants, your communities, and take that back in preparation for our recommendations to the City Commission. As we talked earlier, we're going to have a public presentation on November 12th at 5 p.m. To the Kalamazoo City Commission. It's going to focus on wastewater, not so much of a deep dive that we did today. We're also going to include water, so it's a bit of a higher level presentation on wastewater, and then that will also include water. And then we're going to be making ordinance recommendations to the Kalamazoo City Commission on November 18th, and then at the meeting on December 2nd as well. And we are recommending that these rate packages be effective on January 1st, which would coincide with an annual rate increase. So with that, if there are any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them or talk through them. You're free to go or grab some more chips or whatever you want to do. So thank you, everybody, for coming out. We greatly appreciate it. And we greatly appreciate your support and partnership